Welcome to the channel for the first time viewers. Welcome back from my existing subscribers. I went ahead and I rebuilt my PC starting from the O11D Air Mini. Watched a ton of videos, so I'm gonna have some B-roll footage flowing. I'm also gonna talk about the 280mm Artic liquid freezer 2 that I have installed to cool this 12900K. So I'm gonna try to give you an overall take on how it was to build in this case, what maybe as a not a novice, I'm in the middle now of a builder, what I wish was a little different. All right. So getting started, the case looks super clean. It was actually not bad to build in, even though it was a tight fit for some of these pieces. It wasn't that bad, right? So it wasn't a horrendous experience. A couple of things that I wish I could do a little different is if I had gotten back and gotten a micro ATX board or an ITX board, I would have had space to place the radiator up at the top of the case. Right now, my radiator is in the front, which is okay because I got the tubes down, passing up. Some of the advantages that I've seen have been cooler GPU temps because I have two fans underneath, which I may look at the bigger O11D just in the future for case possibilities. On top of, having my GPU temperatures drop by as much as 7 degrees to, I think I've seen as high as a 10-degree drop in certain points. For instance, Warzone, which after the B-roll, I'll throw in some gameplay, but Warzone was one of those games that I was teetering at about 68, 69 degrees. Dying Light with the EVGA 3090, that's another one where, I was just, it was getting to like 80 degrees almost. It was like 79 is usually where it would sit, even with the undervolt. So there was like no way for me to control it. Now I'm able to maintain higher clock speeds. It still drops to an extent when the memory gets hot, but because of those two fans at the bottom, it makes a really big difference with the GPU. Now let's talk about the CPU cooler, which is the Artic liquid freezer 2, the 280mm variant. I've never had a CPU cooler this dope. It's not the best looking cooler by any stretch of the imagination. I had the H150i Elite Capellix from Corsair. Fantastic cooler. What I will say, this one is leaps ahead of it is the actual radiator size. The radiator is actually really thick. So I've had a 240mm radiator from Corsair. I had an H100 and it just wasn't cool in the 5800X when I had it. So I switched it out for the 150, and ever since then I've been in love. I made a video which I may link in the description if any of y'all want to check that out. But I made a video about how cool it kept everything. And what I will say is that when I was running Cinebench, none of my games would crash at 5.1 gigahertz. FIFA got really hot. So whenever I play FIFA 22, although it's not like a widely played game, I noticed that my CPU temps creep into the 70s. Like it's like 71, 72. It's the only game that I have in my collection that I actively play where the CPU temperature gets that high. But on this thing, it's nuts. For example, I was running FIFA on the Capellix, the H150 from Corsair. And again, I was getting into the 70, 71, 72 at 5.1 gigahertz. With this cooler, I'm right around 65, I think is the highest that I saw it. But really, I'm down in the high 50s, low 60s while I'm playing FIFA. And again, that's one of the only games, really the only game that taxes my CPU that much. Warzone, I've been as low as like low 40s, but my Capellix did a good job of cooling Warzone. Cinebench, I started talking about Cinebench. On the H150, I thought I had a dud of a 12900K. I was like, it is what it is. You live, you learn, just let it go. I was like, I can't hit 5.1 gigahertz stable unless I go to like 1.34 volts, right? And that's the only way I was able to keep it stable, or if I just had varying the variable, I'm trying to think of the word. If I had it so that the voltage would be variable, right, on auto, that would allow me to hit 5.1, but then it would hit some crazy voltages like 1.38. It wasn't worth it, right? With this cooler, I'm actually able to run back-to-back passes on Cinebench R23. I got 28,500, which I'll try to find the screenshot. I'll throw it up too. But like 28,500, which isn't like amazing, but it's only 5.1 gigahertz. I bumped my P cores to 4 gigahertz. My ring or my cache is at 4 gigahertz as well. So again, When I was on the H150, I had to run 5.1 gigahertz, 3.7 on the E-cores, and 4 gigahertz on the cache. So I've actually gone up in all frequencies. And the best part about it is that I'm actually able to run it at 1.285 volts. So that's insane from having to run 1.34 volts to 1.285. So I might actually try and go for 5.2 gigahertz overclock, even if it takes like, 1.3 or 1.32, something like that. I think is fair. To get 5.2 before, I had to set the power limit to like 288 or 241, and then I would have to. It was sometimes drop, but in gaming, it was just way too hot, right? So like same game FIFA, if I did 5.2 with the power limits being at like 241 or 288, I would get to like almost 80 degrees, and I'm not with a 360 millimeter cooler. I'm not trying to be that high for my temps. It just doesn't make sense, right? But again, this thing has definitely changed my perception. I'm probably gonna roll with 280s from now on. And the case itself, let's talk about right before I close out what I wish was different. If you have a Corsair RM series power supply, why I went with the air is obviously because of the airflow. That's one big factor of it, but it was more so because it took a full form power supply. The regular O11 mini, that one takes a SFX, and those power supplies for running a 3090, I have an 850 watt. That one was going to run me at least, I think it was like 150 for like the 750 watts and like almost 200. It was just way too much money. So I could literally, for the price of the new power supply, just get the case that takes a full size. Those are my two factors, right? The way I have it set up is I got two of my older Corsair 120, I think ML or LLs on the bottom, two at the top. I'm using the case fan that came with it in the back for outtake outtake. And my intakes are the two bottom ones for the actual GPU. Obviously the CPU cooler ones are intake, and then the two at the top are out. So I have 4 in, 3 out, and it stays pretty cool, right? So back to the Corsair power supply. I know I jumped around because I was on that SFX statement, but the issue is the cords are so fat that the area that they designate, which is actually really dope if you have like those EVGA easily foldable power supply cables, or even if you buy the Corsair ones, right? The not secondhand market, but the nicer Corsair ones, the upgraded ones for like $80 or $70. So if you bought those, it actually looks a lot nicer and it would fit a lot better. Right now I'm using the cable extensions from Asia Horse. It's okay, but I had to open up the hard drive cage, and I don't use our hard disk drive anymore, so I use both SSDs. Had to open up the hard drive cage just to stick additional cables to make sure I could clamp the top down. From the backside, it looks super clean, so I have no complaints there. Also flipped the SSDs to be on the inside, not facing the Lian Lee side, because for whatever reason it kind of left a bulge on the outside. So I went ahead and I just put both on the inside, and it works out for me. So overall, if I had to score this case on a 1 to 10 scale for coolness factor and performance, I would give it right about a 9. For ease to build in, I would give it about a 6.5, because there are some tight spaces to work within. And as far as an overall view grade of it, I would say you're probably looking at about an 8. So definitely recommend it. It wouldn't be for the first time build. Maybe the full size one would be something I'd recommend for the full time build. But other than that, I would definitely say that it's a keeper. It's dope. If you're starting from scratch, look at MATX so you can hang the 280 millimeter up top, because right now my 144 millimeter fans wouldn't even fit up top. There's like one spot where I can get it to fit because it has the RAM clearance, but the motherboard is the issue. So the VRM, the heatsink at the top, you actually can't mount something up there. So that was another problem for me. But the way the case is designed and how you take it apart, it was a dope experience, man. So super cool. And yeah, looking forward to reading some of these comments. Y'all let me know what you think about some of the B-roll footage. I had to take it from my phone, and it was just, it is what it is. I'm not a photographer or a videographer. I just do what I can. But yeah, hopefully y'all enjoy. And if I helped you make the decision on whether or not to get this case, that's dope. But yeah, I'm catch y'all on the flip. Be easy. And that was it. Literally, you like, I need plates, and I had pee with it.
I downed the guy. I downed the guy.
You can taunt your enemy with words.
Back
or
respawn.
rocks.
Going right. You're right.
Rocks.
Right there, in front of you.
Your teammate has
I feel like that
failed.
the gun I like
Sent back to
off the
base.
ground, now that it's been out 2 weeks,
Wesley
it's
Snipes.
kind of shitty now.
I hit the
Damn.
brand. I got the brand. I lost this.
Let's get
I
this
want to last out with
going.
them, bro.
Get ready to tussle.
Experience
You're
all
on.
with it.
Win here and you return to the battlefield. Lose and your fight is over.
Yep.
Fight you.
Sorry.
You showed no